Hello, everybody, and welcome to the After the Film podcast. I'm your host, Riaz Osman, and today I'm joined by my fellow film buff and special guest, Ijaz. Welcome to the show, Ijaz.
Hi, Riaz. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. Our first ever After the Film podcast on this movie Thunderbolts. So really excited to talk about it.
So it's been a few hours since we watched Thunderbolts, the final film in Phase 5 of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. How are you feeling so far?
So first things first, I really enjoyed the movie. I thought it was a good reintroduction back into the MCU. I think it was the first MCU movie I watched in a while, as far as I can remember, because I didn't watch Captain America 4 in the cinema. I wasn't really taken aback by the reviews of that, so I waited until it came out just recently. I watched it. I did enjoy that, but I think Thunderbolts was a really nice sort of roll back into the MCU. Kind of reminded of us what the MCU used to be like.
I agree. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think the Marvel Cinematic Universe for me after Avengers Endgame has felt a bit like a roller coaster. There's been a few highs and a few lows as well, but I feel Thunderbolts has come at the right moment. And I think especially with us as fans searching for something to reignite that special feeling, like you say, something of the good old days of the MCU.
Definitely.
I think after seeing Thunderbolts, that's a film that has just done that.
No, absolutely. I completely agree. The Thunderbolts it didn't feel like a 2-hour, 40-minute movie. It had, in terms of its formation as a movie, you had the 3 acts. You had the beginning where you had essentially the introduction to the team.
Yes.
You had the middle part where they meet the antagonist, and then the final 3rd act is where they essentially take him down. But I thought it was a really well done story. It was very, I suppose, different from some of the Phase 5 Marvel and Phase 4 movies where it felt a bit all over the place.
Yeah.
Whereas this, it felt like they had the right sort of direction. It was a movie that kind of brings us towards the future of where the MCU is trying to go. And it was also, utilized existing characters and their story arcs really, really well.
I agree.
I think that's some of the main points I think we'll probably touch on during this podcast as well.
What was your favorite moment from the Thunderbolts film?
For me, I'll be honest. It's like a lot of reviews have said. It's got to be Yelena's story.
Yes.
In my personal opinion, and it's not just Florence Pugh's acting, which is great anyway. But I think knowing where Yelena's come from, the loss that she suffered, and that's a story that really encompasses a lot of the heroes that we deal with anyway. But also the anti-heroes in this movie. They go through loss, but in this particular case, it's not just losing family members; it's the mental health aspect of having lost family members or having to go through struggle. But in Yelena's case, it's something I haven't really seen a lot, especially in a superhero movie, which is loneliness and depression. And the way it comes across, the way she portrays it, the way that it's written for her, I thought that was really well done. I think touching on real world issues to ground these characters in that sort of format, it really makes you relate to them.
I agree.
It really, really does. It makes you relate to them. So I think the overall story for her, but also Bob.
Yes.
Bob had a mental health story. His struggle with depression and drugs, his trauma from childhood that was touched on slightly near the end.
Yes.
Again, these are real world issues that a lot of people deal with. And I think something that we talked about briefly just as we came out of the movie was that a child who suffered from trauma, whether it's parental trauma, whether it's bullying, whatever it is, that person can grow up to be a really, really damaged human being.
I agree.
And that can create both a hero if he overcomes those problems, but it can create a villain if the person doesn't, if he really goes down into that dark hole. And I think those subjects that were really touched upon, those were that was my favorite part of the movie.
I think, like you say, I think every single character within Thunderbolts, they're all fractured in their own way. Like you say, Yelena mourning for the loss of her sister Natasha. I think Bucky Barnes haunted by decades of being the Winter Soldier and not being fully in control of himself. And I think, like you say, Bob. Robert Reynolds, wrestling with his split identity and his inner demons. And I thought the film's use of the void, a dark consuming force, that was a really good metaphor, for the depression and psychological decay that, a lot of people may be going through today. And it's not just a villain to defeat, but it's a visual representation of internal suffering. I think in terms of favorite moments for me, I'd say U.S. Agent John Walker.
Yep.
I think I went into this film thinking, yeah, we know what John Walker's like. He's very egotistical. He's all about him. He's a bit of a bully. And we start to see that in the opening moments of the film and how he treats Bob. But what really, really won me over and made me fall in love with the character was the redemption arc. And I think in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, he was given the mantle of Captain America by
Yep.
the US government. There's a lot of pressure on his shoulders.
Yep.
I think he tried to do his best, but I think he maybe tried a little bit too much and lost control.
Yep.
And I think that moment where he killed the member of the Flag Smashers,
Yep.
that had a lot of negative backlash
Yep.
on him as an individual. And I think over the last few years, he's been trying to overcome that and try and win the American people over.
Yep.
And I think in Thunderbolts, he finally got that moment.
Yep.
I think when he saved that family from the falling slab,
Yep.
that was it. I think that's what really won me over. And I think at the end, when he went and embraced Bob in the void, that's kind of what caused a bit of a turning point. It was well written.
Do you know what? On the point of it being well written, I just in superhero movies, the one thing I've always loved about them ever since I was a kid is the heroic moments.
Yes.
And redemption arcs and heroic moments are just, and sometimes you can do them really badly, and sometimes they can be done naturally. And this was done naturally because we had backstories to these characters from previous TV series, etc., right? Movies. So we know about them. So we don't have to be introduced to them. All we have to understand is how they got from that position to where they are right now. And that was done really, really well. And I mean, just touching on the point about John Walker's character, we know from Steve Rogers that the serum exaggerates a person's natural cognitive abilities, right?
Yes.
So Steve, being an incredibly kind, heartwarming person, looking out for others,
yes,
the serum exaggerated those abilities, so he became even more so when he became Captain America. Whereas with John, although John was a decorated military captain, in order to be that, you have to be somewhat of a bit of an egotistical person.
Yeah.
So when he took the serum, that exaggerated that aspect of his personality. So, but for him to overcome that is even bigger.
Yes.
It's even a bigger thing. So I think that's really good point when it comes to John. And you pointed out after Yelena escaped the aspect right at the end, first to embrace Bob, John was the second one.
Yeah.
After during the entire movie where he's really putting it down, he's the one who's like, you know what? Because what Bob shows some resilience as well, which John didn't think he had.
No.
So Bob's like, you know what? If I can't get the help of the others, I'll do it myself. And John, there's a moment where the camera pans to John, and John's looking at him, and he's thinking, wow, you know what?
Yes.
He's got some steel about him, and so he's like, you know what? I need to help him out. So just brilliant.
I think it's like throughout the film, all these characters, whether it's Red Guardian to Ghost to John Walker to Yelena herself and even Bucky Barnes, they're all searching for purpose.
Yeah.
And I think from the start of the film to the end, we follow them as characters, and they all eventually find their purpose in becoming the new Avengers.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, friendship can come at the most awkward of times, and they're put in a position where they have to take each other out because they are assets of a sort of a covert company that the government are investigating. That's led by I can't remember the lady's name now. Val, I think her name
Valentina,
was. Yeah. And so from that perspective, I think that was really well done. But no, just really enjoyable. But I think when we're talking about enjoyment, I got to mention Red Guardian.
Oh, Red Guardian! He's the one who kind of brought the light to the show, the humor.
And it wasn't misplaced humor. It was completely natural.
Yeah,
and it was David Harbour's acting.
I agree.
As Red Guardian.
I think he was the representation of all the audience's voices.
Yeah.
We wanted them to go out there as a team.
Yeah.
And I think Red Guardian represented that. He said, come on, Thunderbolts.
I mean, the thing is, he was trying to, when he gets introduced to the Thunderbolts, right, and he meets the team and he's trying to put them together and everyone's very cynical about it. But then when Bucky comes and enters the frame, he looks at Bucky, and Bucky's like a natural leader. He's been through Infinity War, he's been through Endgame, he's been through the blip and all that kind of stuff. He's been through his own past problems. He's really turned his life around. And Bucky comes in, and he's all of a sudden, he's looking up to Bucky as this super soldier that that he's kind of modeled off in
Yeah.
Russia. And but then when Bucky starts leading the team, he just becomes even more enthused, and his enthusiasm is infectious, really. So I really want to see more of Red Guardian. It's just hilarious, absolutely hilarious.
Hilarious.
Even at the end of the movie, just brilliant, just
Brilliant.
brilliant.
He kind of puts the cherry on the top. And
Yeah,
I think what I really liked about Bucky Barnes was he really stood up and led the team.
yeah.
And I think the defining moment, which was very reminiscent of Steve Rogers, was when he was in the Watchtower and everyone was knocked out and he stood up and he had a go and he said,
He had a go,
I'm not going to
yeah.
give up. And that was kind of a mirror, a reflection of Steve Rogers at the end of Endgame.
Yes,
Everyone's gone. It was just him versus Thanos'
Yep.
army, and then the portals emerge.
Yes,
And
yeah, very true.
I
very
really
true.
like how John Walker picked him up even after Bucky Barnes got knocked out,
Mm.
and they all went together down as a team to
Yes,
safety
yeah, yeah,
to
yeah.
regroup and
Yeah.
discuss a new plan. It was amazing. But yeah,
Sorry, go on, go on.
is there anything in this film that you feel could have been better?
Do you know what? That's a really difficult question to answer for something that you actually enjoy really a lot. But I think one thing it's not necessarily a negative, but it's something that I probably would have liked to have seen more because it's something I actually liked, which is Sentry.
Sentry, yes.
I mean, talking about Sentry, we haven't really touched upon Sentry, but Bob's character that forms into Sentry via the Sentry project is sort of a continuation of the MCU trying to find superhumans via scientific methods. And Sentry, I liked Sentry as the character. He's incredibly powerful. He was conflicted in what he should do, but I think we didn't see enough of him.
No, I agree.
I get why, because in terms of story, because I think they needed to get from him to the Void, but I would have loved to have seen more of him, and we might in the future because Bob's still around. But Sentry was really cool, man. I really wanted to see a lot more of him. But I think the Thunderbolts are not immensely powerful characters, so Sentry could just kind of wipe them out really quickly. So I think that was they had their go, and then he just wiped them out, and it was done. But
it reminded me a little bit of the way Adam Warlock was introduced in Guardians
very
3.
good point. Yeah.
I think with Sentry, what I would have loved to have loved to have seen, similar to the other characters, because I think general audience going in, they might not have seen all the other projects. So it's a lot of homework to do, whether it's Ant-Man and the Wasp for Ghost, Black Widow for Red Guardian and Yelena, or Falcon and the Winter Soldier and the previous stories for Bucky and US Agent. But I think for Sentry, it would have been nice to just see a little prologue, just to kind of see like an opening credit scene, with them experimenting on
exactly.
Bob, like they used to in Spider-Man back in the day, or the Incredible Hulk films. That would have given them a good starting point.
Yep, it would have absolutely. There was just the opening scene where Yelena is in the lab, and we understand that there's something being made in that lab, where the guy's trying to, where one of the scientists or the head scientist is trying to stop Yelena from whatever her mission was. So we get a kind of a picture as to something that's going on, but we don't understand it.
No.
And then obviously Bob's introduced, and it's like, okay, who's this guy? So yeah, we didn't get to see much of Sentry, which I would have liked to have, but that's kind of one of my negatives. Yeah.
And do you think, in terms of the direction and the tone of this film, because personally, I felt watching the Thunderbolts, it felt like a movie from the Infinity Saga. The way it was shot, the action sequences, the humor. It felt like something that would have fallen in place between phase 2 or phase 3.
Yes, yeah. It didn't feel like there was a director who was experimenting with different storylines or different tones. I think this was the standard MCU tone that we've seen previously that works.
Well.
I think that's one of the things, because it's familiarity that we're looking at here. We're watching. It's a sense of going back to something that we know. Whereas in phase 4 and 5, we've seen a lot of variations of different things, whether it's wokeness, whether it's experimentation with characters, whether it's introducing the cosmic element of things. I think what this was again the grounded nature of what the MCU's always been and what's been successful. And I think that's what worked in this movie. And I'd like to see them kind of go back to that more in the future.
I agree.
We'll see if that works, really, because we know what kind of a little bit what the future holds.
I agree. I mean, I saw you at the end of the film, very excited at the post-credit scene. I think both post-credit scenes were very brilliant and tie into what's yet to come.
Yep.
But what do you think about the future? What do you think this is setting the stage for the Thunderbolts?
I mean, obviously, this is a spoiler version. This is a spoiler-filled podcast,
That's
so we
it.
can talk about everything. As the end credit scene was rolling, and they're talking about something, entering our dimension, a spaceship heading towards Earth. The first thing that crossed to my mind was, okay, maybe aliens, another
yes.
alien invasion of some kind. But then I thought, hang on a minute. And then when they showed the image of sort of a distant ship traveling really fast, it was the same shot or a very similar shot to the one in the Fantastic Four trailer where the ship's going up into space. And then as it zoomed into the ship, I was like, that's the Fantastic Four ship.
Yes.
I was like, and then it turns and it shows the four. I was like, oh my God.
That was
and I
mind-blowing.
lost my head a little bit there. I think me and you were the only ones in the whole theater who was like, oh my God, that's the Fantastic Four ship.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think what's going to happen, to answer your question very quickly, is that the Fantastic Four movie is something that we have to watch. We were going to watch it anyway. We're going to watch it now.
Definitely.
And I think in that movie, and not to go too much into it, but I think there's going to be a cataclysmic event,
yes,
which either destroys that particular Earth or that entire universe, whether by an incursion, which means that the Fantastic Four have to escape,
yes,
and then enter into the 616 universe, and that's where we're going to have 4 teams in Avengers Doomsday.
It's going to be awesome.
We're going to have Sam's Avengers.
Yes.
We're going to have the new Avengers. We're going to have the original X-Men.
Oh yeah.
And we're going to have the Fantastic Four. I cannot believe that. I mean, I knew we had a massive ensemble cast, but now we actually have Marvel's 4 biggest superhero teams in one movie, and it's going to be mental.
Now that's what you call a proper 20th anniversary celebration.
I didn't think there was going to be anything bigger than Endgame.
Oh, yeah.
Could you imagine seeing these 4 teams on the same screen? Oh my God.
It's going to bring back a lot of old fans, a lot of new ones, and it'll be a special event. But one last question. Are you Team Bucky or Team Sam?
Oof. Damn.
I think
at the moment I'm Team Bucky because of the movie that I've just watched.
Yes.
But I do like Sam as Captain America in Captain America 4. I think he really displayed a lot of what Captain America should be, his values, etc. We've yet to see what his team looks like, really.
Oh yeah.
Just ready. Shall we have a bit of speculation as what his team's going to be? I think there'll be Thor. I think Ant-Man will be in it. Obviously Sam. I think his Falcon, his partner Falcon. Do you have any others? I can't.
Shang-Chi, he's out there.
Shang-Chi, of course.
Captain Marvel. Bruce Banner is a big question mark as to where he goes.
Yeah.
She-Hulk and Spider-Man.
Do you think Daredevil will be there?
Daredevil's a possibility. I think some of the grounded heroes may show up. So it'll be interesting if they recruit Daredevil. Doctor Strange, I think he's out there dealing with incursions with Claire.
Yeah.
When he comes back, it'll be interesting to see which side he picks.
I don't think he's on the cast list for the Avengers Doomsday.
No.
I don't think Spider-Man is either. But I think they will be part of his teams at some point. But a Black Panther, maybe? Black
Panther. I think the question we've got to ask is which of the 2 Avengers teams will get to the Fantastic Four first? I tell you, whoever wins the Fantastic Four, that's it. They're the ones who lead.
Yeah.
But we'll have to see.
Yeah, because they were talking about space in the building, in the Watchtower, the new Avengers Tower, being limited. So are both teams based there? Are they not? Because we don't have Tony, remember? It's a bit of a strange one, where the resources are coming from now. So we don't really know. So we'll have to see. Because Val is funding
new Avengers. Yes.
So where was it? Because the President Ross is now in jail in the raft. So is it the government who's funding Sam's Avengers? Who knows? We don't know.
Who knows? A lot of question marks. So, Ijaz, final verdict on the Thunderbolts?
I give it a solid 7 out of 10. That's no slate on the movie. I really enjoyed it. It's a good movie. It's very cohesive. Touches on some really nice real-world emotional points. Some great arcs, and sets up the future nicely.
I agree. I think for me, it's a 7 out of 10 as well. Love the humor. Love the action. It felt like the good old days of the MCU, and I'm just pleased I got to see Bucky Barnes back in action. But Ijaz, it's been a pleasure. Thank you for joining me on this Thunderbolts review on the After the Film podcast. Guys, if you have enjoyed this podcast, then please be sure to follow and like and share with all your friends and family as well. And hopefully, we'll be back with another episode soon. Take care. Bye.